Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and start. We have enough people that have joined us. Good evening, everybody. Masal khair. My name is Sabrine Abu Obaid, and I'm one of the board members and volunteers of Baladna, Palestine Society of Columbus. And on behalf of everybody and the team that worked on tonight's event, as well as our partner organizations, I want to thank you for being here. And before we begin with the main sections of tonight's event, I really wanted to take the moment to ground us on why we are here together today. Uh, Israel has always feared the Palestinian voice as much as it fears the Palestinian body. Since its creation, the Israeli occupation has sought to suppress the truth by silencing our voices in an attempt to erase us. In doing so, it has not only targeted land and life, but also our language and our memory. So, in this gathering today, we aim to center Palestinian voices, voices that generation after generation have always insisted on being heard in the face of these ongoing attempts to silence us. Tonight, we'll start. We'll start by hearing from Dr. Alice Rothchild, who will share with us realities in Gaza and her work with We Are Not Numbers, followed by readings from Palestinian writers whose words carry both the personal and the collective. And we will close in a moderated Q&A. So throughout the event, please send your questions, and you don't have to wait till the end to me or to our co-host, Sara Abu Rashid. So again, questions to me and to our co-host, Sara Abu Rashid. The event for today is being recorded, and we will share the link to buying the book, which I encourage everybody to buy the book and to also follow WANN and register for the newsletter. I'm just gonna share the link for the book. Um, And there's a lot of team members that worked on tonight's event, and I love how events centered around Palestine always brings us together. And this event got me to meet a wonderful person. So I'm honored to be introducing Charlene, who is a member of Central Ohio Jewish Force for Peace since 2014. Um, the numbers tattooed on her friend's parents' arms growing up inspires her to say never again for anyone. Charlene is an emeritus professor of English at Columbus College of Art and Design and author of several collections of poetry, most recently Jew Girl 2023, in part dealing with Israel and Palestine, and Habitat of Ghosts from both from Broadstone Books and a prose study of Harpo Marx and the Marx Brothers film. Charlene is a mother of three and grandmother of two, which also compels her to work for social justice. And she has been mentoring Palestinian writers on essays and poems everywhere in occupied Palestine, from Jerusalem to the West Bank and mostly Gaza for the last 6 years. Charlene, go ahead.
Am I unmuted? Now you're muted. Okay. I have the honor tonight of introducing Dr. Alice Rothchild, and thank you so much for that introduction to me also. Alice Rothchild is a physician, author, filmmaker with a longstanding interest in human rights and social issues. She graduated from Bryn Mawr College in 1970. We graduated the same time from undergrad school. And Boston University School of Medicine in 1974, practiced OBGYN for almost 40 years. Until her retirement, she served as assistant professor of obstetrics and gynecology at Harvard Medical School. Alice writes and lectures widely, blogs regularly, and is the author of several books on Israel Palestine, three focused on health and human rights issues, and 2 award-winning novels for children. Her memoir was named a must-read for the month of November by Ms. Magazine. She has won other honors and awards, but just to keep it short, I'm going to skip to Alice is a member of Jewish Voice for Peace, Health and Advisory Council, mentor, liaison for We Are Not Numbers on the board of the Gaza Mental Health Foundation, and Americans for Middle East, including study guides and resources. Oh, wait, I skipped something. Americans for Middle East Understanding. She was last in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza in 2023, which is amazing. For more information, she has a website, and we can put all that in the chat. So I give you Dr. Alice Rothchild.
Well, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to do an update on what's happening in Gaza, and I'm going to also talk a little bit about We Are Not Numbers. And I'm obviously having some issues with my computer because I'm giving a talk today. So let me just see if I can move this around. Okay. So one of the things I'm going to focus on healthcare and human rights, mostly healthcare. And I always like to remind people that the healthcare system before October of 2023 was on life support, and that with years of siege and restrictions, it was functioning, but it was highly, having a lot of issues. And so everything that happened after the genocide started was on top of a healthcare system that wasn't doing so well to begin with. And so what we see since the genocide started is that untreated chronic diseases are skyrocketing because the healthcare system was destroyed. Dialysis units were destroyed. There wasn't a whole lot of cancer therapy to begin with, but there was none during the intensive bombing. And healthcare for people with disabilities was also severely limited. And as you can imagine, there's been a rapid rise in people who have disabilities. There's been a spike in infectious diseases, partly due to the lack of healthcare and also to the lack of hygiene. And there are infestations of rats and pests and that kind of issue. Much of the population has had things like untreated hepatitis A, chronic watery diarrhea, people who developed hypertension and diabetes and diseases like that have not been diagnosed or treated. And even if you knew you had diabetes, your ability to get insulin was severely limited. And even if you could get it, you couldn't refrigerate it. And then on top of that, there have been a massive, massive number of injuries. And this all has an effect on the psychological health of the population. Psychiatrists are talking about a chronic trauma fatigue, a state of emotional numbness, loss of meaning, and internal fragmentation with rising rates of suicide. And I always feel like I should do a trigger warning when I talk about the actual numbers because they're so disturbing. But just to know that we're all talking about the same tragedy here. Since October 7th, that shouldn't be November, to be October 2023, more than 72,000 people have been killed, 172,000 more injured, and everyone agrees this is a gross underestimate in terms of numbers. The majority of folks killed have been women, children, and the elderly. 12% of the population has been killed, injured, or detained. One child was killed every 52 minutes until the ceasefire. 83 to 96% of the deaths have been civilians. And if you look at the massive bombing, the bombs dropped on Gaza are equivalent to 8 times the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which translates to 67 kilograms of explosives dropped per person in Gaza. More than 450 people have starved to death, including 147 children. Most of the population has been displaced at least once, and people have been displaced 5, 10 times, and there is still no safe place to live or be. Now, on October 10th of last year, there was a, quote, ceasefire and prisoner exchange, and I think we have to be clear that there has been no ceasefire. Since then, more than 700 people have been killed and almost 2,000 injured. Israel controls 58% of Gaza, and they have a sort of north-south yellow line, they call it, which is constantly changing, and this is the area that is the most fertile agricultural area. The bombings and demolitions have continued. The crossings with Israel and Egypt are occasionally open, mostly closed. The ability for NGOs to register has been markedly reduced because Israel has a whole new batch of rules that none of them want to do. And in terms of what's left, 4% of the cropland is undamaged and accessible, 11% of the orchards, and 9% of the agricultural wells. There has been, particularly during the winter, an issue of massive flooding, raw sewage in the streets, or sewage pouring into people's tents, just horrific hygiene conditions. Almost all the housing, 84% of the medical facilities, all the educational facilities, water, sanitation, and hygiene have been damaged or destroyed. Close to 1 million people need emergency shelter, and they're living in an environment where there has been more than 50 million tons of rubble created, and much of it is toxic due to the military detritus. And NGOs and UNRWA, which was a major UN agency responsible for refugees, and 70% of Gazans are refugees from 48, are under assault. What we see is really a trickle of food, educational supplies, medical equipment, drugs, reconstruction, the beginning of some field hospitals, but it's totally inadequate. And since the war began on Iran, there has been an 80% decrease in aid. So this is an ongoing humanitarian catastrophe. We know that there are about 37,000 pregnant and breastfeeding women who currently suffer acute malnutrition requiring treatment. There was one study where 60% of children between 6 and 23 months had severe food poverty. And the Israeli forces deny things like fresh meat, educational supplies, solar panels, mobile latrines, refrigerators, water treatment parts, tents, things that people absolutely need to survive. The World Health Organization reported that essential medications are depleted. And The Lancet, which is a prominent UK journal, reported that most victims were civilians, and more than 1 million life years have been lost because so many children under the age of 15 were killed. Now, if we look at hospitals and clinics, they were clearly targeted by Israeli forces. 2/3 of the hospitals were completely destroyed, and the remainder are barely functional. They're also significantly over capacity, so people are literally lying on the ground in emergency rooms and in the wards. As of last August, they had 52% of essential drugs, and 2/3 of essential disposables were at zero stock. So this is catastrophic for a hospital. And if you think about it, the staff in the hospitals are experiencing the same thing as their patients. So they are depleted, overworked, traumatized, hungry, starving, living in tents, injured, killed, like their patients. And there were reports of surgeons fainting in the operating room from hunger. By April of this year, more than 1,700 healthcare professionals had been killed and 300 detained in Israeli prisons, where we have documentation that they have been tortured and occasionally killed. By March of this year, the Israeli restrictions were focused on essential fuel and spare parts, and the lack of these things was pushing the territory towards a total collapse of the healthcare system. It's almost impossible to transfer out of Gaza if you have emergency health needs. And in this context, for women, physicians and midwives are providing care the best they can. So what we're seeing is this long month after month after month increasing collapse of the healthcare system. Right now, there are 35 emergency medical teams functional, more than 18,000 critical patients, including 4,000 children, who require evacuation now for medical issues. 37 of the hospitals are partially functional, with partially being the important word there. And they have set up 3 field hospitals, their 5 primary healthcare centers, and 12 medical points that are fully functional. But you look at the kind of damage that happened, over half the vaccination centers were destroyed during the genocide. And one of the things the Israelis did at the very beginning, and people talk about reprocide, destroying the ability to reproduce, they targeted an IVF center and destroyed 5,000 embryos. Now, issues for women are very big because they are more vulnerable than the rest of the population. Uh, there has been a rise in gender-based violence. This woman we're seeing a picture of, she's just delivered her baby in a tent. The women that are pregnant are, as you can imagine, having severe mental health stressors. They do not have prenatal care. They're living in a toxic environment with inadequate nutrition. They're not safe. And the healthcare issues really peak at the time of delivery and postpartum because there's risks to all their options. If they stay in a tent, they may not have anyone attending their birth. If they leave the tent and try to get to a hospital, they could get killed on the way to the hospital. They could get to the hospital and they're competing with people who are injured and bleeding and critically ill. And who knows how much care they would be able to get there. Women in this situation, with the amount of malnutrition that they experience, are often unable to breastfeed, so they need to obtain formula. It is difficult to find formula, it is expensive, and the powder has to be mixed with clean water, and there's almost no clean water. So you can see that this is just a massive catastrophe. The birth rate has plummeted 41% over the past 3 years. There are 150,000 pregnant and breastfeeding women urgently in need of nutritional support. And not surprisingly, there's been an increase in pregnancy complications, currently at 68%. There's been an increase in spontaneous abortions. These are miscarriages. A fifth of pregnancies end in preterm labor, with more and more low birth weight babies because of the malnutrition, more and more congenital abnormalities because of the toxic environment, and more stillbirths. Another thing is that there are 700,000 women and girls who lack menstrual health items. So every month, these people are in a situation where they can't take care of themselves. It's embarrassing, it's humiliating, and it's really destructive to their mental health. So life expectancy for women has decreased by almost 30 years in the last 3 years. And in the first 2 years of the genocide, there were 57 women and girls killed every day on average. Now, we have to remember that this nutritional crisis, this massive amount of hunger, this was a man-made famine. Currently, markets are very expensive and food is scarce. Prior to the partial ceasefire, when the aid trucks would be able to get in, they were often taken by hungry crowds just taking the food because they were starving, or they were looted by armed gangs that then sold the food on the black market, and these gangs have been protected by the Israeli forces. Since the partial ceasefire, folks are averaging 2 meals per day. There's no dietary diversity, and there are miles of aid trucks unable to enter with hundreds of tons of food and medications, and much of the food spoils before it even gets in. And if you look at what the Israeli forces have been blocking, these include essential foods, eggs, meat, fish, dairy, fruits, vegetables, nutritional supplements, and dozens of other items that would be useful for pregnant women and people with chronic illnesses. They are also prohibited, which is really criminal. Now, there is a group that puts together what's called the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, which looks at the level of malnutrition in different settings. They officially declared a state of famine in Gaza in 2025. And although some aid has begun to trickle in, experts say that this famine will ultimately alter Gaza for generations to come. So famine isn't just something that happens in the present, it's something that leaves its mark for generations. And I want to just quote from the UNFPA, which is the UN Population Organization. They said, famine is a death sentence for pregnant and breastfeeding women and their newborns. It means being forced to give birth while malnourished, exhausted, and at heightened risk of death. It means their babies are born too small, too weak, or too early to survive. It means mothers unable to breastfeed because they, too, are starving. And it forces mothers to make the impossible choice between which of their children to feed and which must be left to perish. 1 in 5 babies are born prematurely or underweight. 1 in 7 newborns need emergency neonatal care. Children who survive will be marked by stunting, developmental delays, weakened immunity, and increased risk of adult chronic disease, ruining the health of Palestinians for generations. So now Gazans are really involved in the struggle both to survive and to rebuild. There are ambulance centers that are now partially functional. In terms of mental health, the Gaza Community Mental Health Program has 100 active staff that are working out of one office building, 5 caravans, and one partly destroyed building. The UN has mental health and psychosocial support teams that are both in fixed places and in mobile teams. There are health partners continuing to attempt to deliver life-saving health services under incredibly difficult situations. One of the first things that the health system did was to launch a catch-up child immunization campaign because of the destruction of the immunization ability during the bombings. And there are structural things going on. There's a water line that is being connected that is nearly completed. There's repair of things like sewage pipes and stormwater outlets and desalination plants and wells, all of this necessary for survival and for hygiene and clean water. But none of this is enough. Trump's so-called Board of Peace is planning a 5,000-person military base in Gaza, operating hub for what they call the International Stabilization Force. You can only imagine how catastrophic that's going to be. And Palantir, which is this evil data collection and analysis company that works with the Israeli occupation forces, the US Defense Department, and a host of other things, has a permanent desk at the US-led Civil Military Coordination Center in southern Israel, and they are providing the technological architecture for tracking the delivery and distribution of aid to Gaza, which means that they're planning for aid to be highly related to security, which is not good. And this is all happening while all eyes are off Gaza and hopefully paying attention to Iran and maybe Lebanon, but Gaza has really fallen out of the headlines, which is very dangerous. Now, some people ask me, well, why do you call this assault on Gaza a genocide? And I just want to make it clear that there is an international definition of genocide. It includes any of 5 acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. We know that there is intent just listening to the language of the Israeli leadership. They had a very fascistic, racist, genocidal words. Talking about Palestinians as animals, destroying Gaza, Nakba 2, all sorts of things that make their intent clear. And then there are 5 acts that makes this a genocide. Killing members of the group, we've got that. Causing them seriously bodily or mentally harm, we have that. Imposing living conditions intended to destroy the group, we have that. And preventing births, we definitely have that. And this is all happening where victims are being targeted because of their perceived membership in the group and not randomly. And the Genocide Convention further criminalizes complicity, attempt, or incitement of its commission, which means that everyone who is supporting the Israeli Air Force, the Israeli military, and the Israeli government is complicit. Now, the other thing is that under an international law, hospitals and health workers are protected. It's a protected group. This is the Geneva Conventions, Article 19, that states that you cannot attack medical establishment staff or patients. And the bar for hospitals to lose this kind of protected status is actually very high. And experts agree that none of these conditions were met in any of the 36 hospitals that were damaged or destroyed. And even if they were met, which they were not, the military is required to protect patients and staff, which they clearly did not do. So now I want to turn to We Are Not Numbers. This was founded in 2014 with Ahmed Al-Nouk, who was a young man in Gaza, and Pam Bailey, who was a journalist. He had just lost his brother. He was angry and depressed and distraught, and she encouraged him to write his story. And he found that such a powerful experience that they decided to start a group that would encourage young Palestinians to write their personal experiences and then to be mentored by an English writer for a Western audience. And this was done in collaboration with Dr. Rami Abdu, who's chair of the board of directors for the Euromed Human Rights Monitor. And also Dr. Rafat Al-Arir was a key source of inspiration and guidance. He was a teacher for many of the young writers, and he was killed in 2023. Now, as I said, the goal of the organization is to match young writers with published native English-speaking mentors. The goal is to tell their story in a way that Western audiences can get educated, and also to humanize Palestinians, because most people are very racist and have very not very positive ideas when you say Palestinian, and it's important to make it clear that Palestinians are human. There was an office in Gaza City. Cohorts were invited to apply. There were applications. They were interviewed. A certain number were accepted, and then they had a 3-month training. There were also a lot of social connections and social things that were done together. People were taught photojournalism. There was a whole community that was created. And I think this is partly what I call bibliotherapy, writing as a form of therapy. But also, We Are Not Numbers was designed to train the next generation of writers and journalists. And we were training people not only in the craft of storytelling, what's a paragraph, what's a beginning, what's an ending, but also in the art of storytelling. And then once these essays and poems were completed, they were posted on our website, wearenotnumbers.org. You should all be on that website, and also posted on social media and in the newsletter. And over the course of years, some of their essays were also co-published in other media. Now, just a quick bit on my role and a bit of history. I started mentoring in 2015, and then I became a mentor liaison, which means I'm in charge of the mentors. So there are currently 85 mentors from all over the world. I have been to Gaza 4 times, and the last time was in August of 2025. And I just want to say that I met with the We Are Not Numbers folks, and I had this whole plan for a day of intense writing and critique, and I had this whole plan. And this bus pulls up, and it's full of young people who are dancing in the aisle. There's loud Arabic music playing, and they're like, oh, no, 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 we're not going to do that. We're going to take you all around Gaza and show you what's beautiful. And that's what they did. And we went to the mosque and the church and the beach and had fabulous food and danced the dabka. And it was the most powerful experience you can imagine. And I always think of that when I think about what's happened to Gaza. So it's a very real place for me. So once the assault and the genocide started, it became clear that it was not possible to run this organization in Gaza, and we had to have a management team outside. And it turned out that Ahmed Al-Nouk, who was the original guy, was getting an advanced degree in the UK. So he became head of the organization. The person who worked with him, Wala Saba, was also in the UK getting an advanced degree. So they became the Palestinian team. And then the United States team was me and Kathy Baker, who's the senior editor. And we'll also hear from Zaina, who became the poetry editor. But at the beginning, we didn't have a poetry editor. So we put together meetings and plans trying to keep this organization alive during a catastrophic time. There were other folks, such as Mahmoud Mashtaha, who does all the screening of the pitches, Casper Vogt, who does the website, and there's social media and accountant. There's all these things that make this a functional organization. So that's what we did, and we were able to keep it alive, and the mentors were extraordinary, working with writers the best they could, and I'm happy to talk more about that later if you ask me about it. But since the, quote, ceasefire, efforts are being made to reestablish an office in Gaza City. We've hired Ahmad Adremli as the Gaza Project Coordinator. We put out a call for writers, and we now have a new cohort who's been evaluated, and 42 young people have been chosen. I think about 3/4 are from Gaza, and the rest are from the West Bank and the diaspora. And we're currently developing a training program for them. The goal is to have it in person as much as possible, but obviously it'll be virtual as well. But virtual is always problematic in Gaza because of internet and electricity issues. And also to provide social support for the people who have survived this genocide and education about writing. There are obviously huge issues. We need to find a site, and I think, according to my last management meeting, I think we found one. Communicating with writers can always be challenging. Internet in Gaza is shaky at best and intermittent. A lot of folks don't have access to computers. Many people are writing their essays on their smartphones. During the genocide, we started paying writers, and getting money to Gaza is incredibly challenging. And these writers have lived through an immense amount of trauma. And the war continues, so people are hungry. They have lack housing. They lack health care. And this has obviously all impacted the quality of writing. There's been a whole increase in the use of AI. There are all sorts of issues that we are trying to sort out. So how are we doing? The answer is we're actually doing very well. So first of all, there's the book. We Are Not Numbers. It was published in the UK by Penguin, and then in the United States. In the United States, it's actually published by Interlink. So if you are in the US, better to order it from Interlink. And it's currently being a huge success. And Ahmed Al-Nouk is traveling all over Europe and various other countries talking about the book and spreading the word. It's been translated into Japanese, Italian, Arabic, and Spanish. It's come out in paperback. It's come out as an audiobook. Since 2015, there have been 171 mentors with over 400 writers and over 1,700 stories and poems published. And what has happened is that not only are we educating the future writers of Gaza, but we realize that we are actually helping to provide a critical, intimate documentation with these writers of the siege and of genocide. And as I mentioned, the writers have been published elsewhere, and it's just amazing internationally where they keep showing up. And this is just a tiny, tiny list of the many places, starting with the New Yorker, very respectable. And you can ask, like, why do we do this? Why do we worry about things like punctuation and grammar and story arc when the writers perhaps crowded together with 30 family members in the wreckage of their home or mourning the death of their brother and typing, on a smartphone? What is the point of doing this? And I think that what we do this for is that when we are texting with a hungry writer in a tent, we are also saying, we see you as a creative person who is more than a victim, that we care not only about your survival, but also your dignity, self-respect, and pride in creating a piece of writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Alice. I know you asked me many times to call you Alice, but words are kind of leaving me. But I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being part of the medicine in this world, and not just through the practice of medicine. So thank you for everything that you are and everything that you walked us through today. It's really difficult to hear about the current situation in Gaza, but we could see your passion and love. So thank you. And next, I'm going to be introducing one of the writers that Alice kind of shed light onto what's going on with them on the ground and their involvement with WANN. But I'm happy and honored to introduce Basman. Basman Dirawi was born in Kuwait and lived there for 2 years before going back home to Gaza. He is a physiotherapist for the Ministry of Health in Gaza, graduated from Al-Azhar University in 2010, and was in Egypt taking a course in physiotherapy in October 2023 when the genocide had started, and has had to remain in Egypt since then. You'll get to meet Basman and see his energy, but Basman thinks of writing as a remedy, as Dr. Alice shared with us, a tool that can change the world and be used as resistance. He is inspired by music, movies, and people with special needs. One of his dreams as a Palestinian is to share and show Palestinians real faces as they struggle and work for their rights. He also loves to read, cook, and play video games and basketball. Basman lost his sister, Iman, who was killed along with her husband and their 4 children. In addition to Iman and her family, Basman has also lost 2 close friends, Isa and Oude, to the Israeli occupation. Basman.
Thank you, Sabrine, and it's a pleasure to be here with you all tonight. The first poem I'm going to read tonight is a poem titled A Degree in Surviving Assaults. It was mentored by Pam Paley, and this poem actually was a response to the Israeli assault on Gaza in 2021. And it's also in the anthology as well. A Degree in Surviving Assaults. If there were a degree bestowed for surviving armed assaults. I would have earned it with honors. Magna cum laude. I'm living through my fourth now, although I'm not sure if I will live for graduation. If you test me, I bet I'd ace the exam. I can tell the difference between the voice of an F-16, F-35, and Apache helicopter. I can immediately detect whether a sound is the shelling of tanks or bumping from airplanes. But with my degree has come different types of syndromes. Phobia of the night, hypersensitivity to the sound of moving chairs, or really any banging object. Insomnia from anticipating death. I have also learned a few truths. First, the world is hypocritical, yet is full of hidden gems. Good people willing to speak out. Second, actual death is when you don't stand up for what is right. And third, no matter what, Palestine will always be my home. The second poem I'm going to read is At the Door of Jannah. It was mentored by Kevin Haddock, and it was written in 2024. This poem, actually, I imagine the reunion of my two friends, of my two close friends that were killed in this genocide in heaven. Today, Isa welcomes Auda at the door of Jannah. They have the hug they missed when a rocket took Isa so quickly. They see the beauty of Palestine they have never seen on earth. In paradise, the aching still grips their chest and throats. Should they think with Angel? Can they sob and shed tears in Jannah? They cry over Gaza, over the orphaned children who will know their babas only by photos and stories, while the rockets and bombs stir their hair and blankets and interrupt their dreams. They cry while Imad evacuates a third time, searching for a tent in Rafah. They see Abdullah, Rana, Khalil, everyone. They still see everything in Gaza. No blackout interrupts Jannah. Look, Muhammad and Mahmoud search for water and flour. Look how crowded Deir al-Balah is. For a little break in the mood, Isa smiles and pokes Auda. Look, Basman is sitting in a corner, holding his phone, crying and smiling. He must be writing a poem about us. The next poem is My Home by Iman al-Haj Ali. It was mentored by Kevin Haddock. It was written in 2022, and it's also in the anthology, in the book. My home. What is home? This is a place where a wall can explode, a table fly and spin, a glass shatter faster than a flinch. These hours, when the refreshment and conversation flash by like commercial in a television series called War, the cast changes in each episode. A sister dies, a cousin disappears, a father is killed, a brother, a cat, a mother, a teacher. Every hero appears just once. The whole series may last a season, a month, a week. Someone else controls the schedule. Noise of the drones disrupts our dreams. Our beds and couches turn to rubble. Our wedding plans morph into funerals. Where is home? My little sister dreams and despairs of traveling, studying, working, spending quiet hours, not counting seconds until the next bomb explodes. Iman remains in Gaza, and her family has been forced to relocate more than 7 times. She completed her bachelor degree in English literature and translation before the Israeli war on Gaza began. She is a translator, storyteller, and writer, with her byline appearing on a number of international websites. Writing is the act through which I share part of my soul with the world, she says. The last poem I'm sharing today is a poem by Iman Eid. It was mentored by Wendy Goldsmith, and it was written in 2025. It's Ink Against Erasure. We write to keep our names alive, to carve our stories into time. We write not for sympathy, but to shake the dust from your conscience, not for hearts or likes, but for 4 steps marching toward justice. We write because there is a hereafter, a record beyond this world, a proof before God that we spoke, not in the names of officials, but in our own names, in every tongue, millions of times. We write because we are dehumanized and we need to cry out. We are a human just like you. We write, so if we die, we are not reduced to a name whispered or a number counted, but a voice remembered. Iman Eid is a 22 years old, Gaza-based writer and genocide survivor. In February 2025, she graduated with honors from Al-Azhar University of Gaza, with a degree in English-Arabic translation online. Before the war, she worked briefly as a freelancer translator and content writer. During the war, she volunteered as an English teacher in a school, where she inspired her students to resistance and hope.
Thank you, Basman. Thank you for your voice, and thank you for carrying the voices of others. I know that we are
Thank
all,
you, Sabri.
I was personally moved the first time I heard you read, and same thing again tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Basman. And now I'm gonna introduce our next reader, who's Shahd Safi is a Palestinian writer from Gaza whose writings reflects on identity, loss, and the realities of growing up under occupation, carrying both personal and collective voice. Shahd Safi is an Arabic English translator and teacher, a freelance journalist, a social media coordinator, and human rights advocate. She is also an Erasmus alumni. Outlets in addition to WANN that she has contributed to include Palestine, the Palestine Chronicle, and Palestine Deep Dive, and MZMO. Go ahead, Shahd.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I just wanted to say that one of the biggest lessons that I've learned growing up is that people come with multiple identities, and it's really interesting how people in the Gaza Strip, because of how unique their experience is, did have like the chance to explore their identities in many ways, and also the potential of seeing the possibilities of how they can function, especially under like, unbearable situation. And especially during the genocide, because it has really taught me a lot about my identity, and I would say it deepened how I see myself, and at the same time, like it really made me very, very aware, even though I'm young, like now I'm 25, but all that I've done was because of how harsh the experience has been and the wisdom that it has been teaching me. So thank you. Today I want to read two poems. The first one is called I Want the World to Know. And the reason that I picked it is because I really that's what I want the world to know. So this poem was written by Anas Jnena in 2017, which means few years before the genocide. And like it just a proof that what's been happening in the Gaza Strip has been happening way earlier than some people try to claim. Anyway, and it's been mentored by Pampeli. And it's also mentioned in the anthology. I want the world to know that Gaza is not the devastated, dusty, moldy place too often shown on the news. I want the world to know that Palestinians are neither victims nor heroes. Just like any other people, we wake up every day to go to school or work. We laugh when we hear a funny joke and cry when we have a toothache. We love the smell of the sea and the colors of the sky, especially at sunset. And we hate seeing the dentist, even when we know we should. I want the world to know that when a Palestinian mother ululates over her son's death, it doesn't mean she's celebrating. Rather, it's an often unsuccessful attempt to persuade herself and her other children that she will not let the grief engulf her and she won't give up. But for the truth, look into her eyes and see what they speak. Or, if you have enough guts, stand at her window at night to hear her moans and sighs. I want the world to know that when Palestinian kids throw stones at Israeli soldiers sent to enforce the occupation, it doesn't mean we teach our children hatred or that we advocate violence. Rather, it's our only way of showing that we will resist and defend ourselves, that we aren't defeatists. Instead of questioning Palestinians' intentions, critics first should look for what Israel has contributed to achieving peace and justice. Expanding settlements, a decades-old siege, closed borders, scant hours of electricity a day, 4 wars, and now we know it's been a genocide since 1948. I also want the world to know that despite all this, there is nothing that can stop us from falling in love. I want the world to know that Palestine has writers, artists, thinkers, and most importantly, lovers. I want the world to know that we are humans just like you. So this piece was written by Anas, who he today lives and works as a teacher in Kuwait. However, the rest of his family remains trapped in Gaza. His father was killed during the genocide, and a brother of his was gravely injured. So another piece that I want to read, and this is like, I wrote this piece during the genocide in 2023. I remember I wrote it after a few days after my university, Al-Aqsa University, was bombed, and I was really grieving like what's going on. And I mean, it was during the genocide. I was still in Gaza. I had no clue that I would survive when I wrote this poem, but I really missed everything from before October 6th, like to October 7th, including like the normality of my life that is not really normal compared to other lives outside of Gaza and outside of Palestine. And yeah, so it brings a lot of memories to me, especially now where I really, really miss my home. Because before October 7th, I traveled for the first time to Spain to pursue my Erasmus scholarship for 7 months. And I had no clue when I went back that 2 months after the genocide would happen, because I remember one of the thoughts that I developed when I went back from Spain to Gaza after leaving Gaza for only 7 months. I really missed everything in my home, and I was like, I have too much time because I'm trapped again in Gaza to explore whatsoever place that I missed. I was like, if there is any nostalgia, I can fulfill it, and then the genocide happens. Anyway, so the name of the poem is October 6th. I yearn for a past life before the world turned dark. I ache for mornings when I walk to class, my book bag hanging from my shoulder in Al-Aqsa University. I mourn the bus ride from Rafah to Gaza, where my university stood. I fear it's rubble now. On the bus, I listened to music, felt the breeze on my cheeks as I stepped off, ready to learn again. I listened for the lectures, the poetry classes, the stories by Dr. Ghannam about Shakespeare and Emily Dickinson, all those who molded the world with words. I tried to capture again the spark in Dr. Junaina's eyes as he unraveled the mysteries of syntax and grammar, among words that shape me. Among voices along the street, I hear Dr. Aid's voice, resonating with the pain of Palestine, his words carrying generations of struggle and resistance. I glimpse again his steady eyes when he spoke of the Nakba and Naksa and hope for a free Palestine. I grieve for the bricks between lectures when I wandered the Gaza beach. Will I feel the sand under my feet again? I yearn for the car ride home through the streets of Salah ad-Din. I still catch the spark in my mother's eyes that welcomed me home in Al-Jawazat, a warm hug at the door and lunch on the table. I want the exhaustion of long hours studying, not this drudging down shuttered streets and standing in line. Can I fall now into a nap, dive once more into another world, and dream, then awaken, feeling intoxicated and comforted, ready for a new day of work? Where is the fire in my soul for the worlds within box, the wisdom and solace and passion I found in them? I long for dreams of graduating, of reaching to take a diploma in my hands, not this piece of bread standing on hills of rubble. I mourn for the person I used to be. So these were the two poems. I just wanted to mention that now I'm studying bachelor degree. I was about to graduate, but I could not. Thank God I survived. Then I lived 5 months in Cairo, and then I came to the US to study human rights and written arts. So now I live in the USA. And like the USA has its own struggles and its own challenges. In a nutshell, I've just tried to present some of the work that I've done when I was in Gaza, and I would say that this work belongs to the time of which I was in Gaza, but now I'm writing my second poetry chapbook, and I'm also writing my memoir, and I have published a website, shahidsafi.com, so I would love to answer and connect with anyone if that's possible. And my experience with We Are Not Numbers has been very beautiful. I've started when I was really young. Now I'm 25. I started with We Are Not Numbers in 2019. And it's been really nice to be young and be surrounded by writers who are wiser than you and older than you and learn from them. Also, I've maintained very, very good friendships with mentors. One of them is Kevin Haddock, who Usman and I are very close with. And also, yeah, there are many, many mentors. And also, I think Charlene Fix she was the first poet I spoke with through We Are Not Numbers. I don't know if you recall this, but you were the first mentor that I talked to.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Shahd. Thank you for your art. And thank you for reading for others as well. And for sharing your personal story and giving us context to everything that you shared tonight. And last but not least, I am honored to introduce our last reader for tonight before we move into the Q&A, Zaina. Zaina Azzam is a Palestinian American poet, writer, editor, and community activist. She served as the poet laureate of the City of Alexandria, Virginia from 2022 to 2025. Her publications include the full-length poetry book, Some Things Never Leave You, the chapbook Baina Baina, In Between, the collection Poems for Alexandria, and many poems in literary journals and anthologies. Zaina worked in the fields of education and Middle East affairs for most of her professional career, including 27 years at Georgetown University Center for Contemporary Arab Studies. She has volunteered as a mentor for We Are Not Numbers since 2016 and is now the poetry editor for WANN. Zaina holds an MA in Arabic literature from Georgetown University. Zaina, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Sabrine. It's so lovely to be with all of you here today, and especially to hear Basman and Shahid read their writings and those of other We Are Not Numbers poets and essayists. Thank you to Sabrine, to Charlene and Sarah for hosting us tonight, and of course to Alice Rothchild for the amazing work you do for We Are Not Numbers. I've served as a mentor, and I did that first with the essays since 2016 with We Are Not Numbers. And I know I have these funny squares in my in my glasses. I hope it's not too distracting. Um, so I've served as a mentor since 2016. It's been one of the more rewarding activities of my life. I'm Palestinian, but I don't have family in Gaza, so I haven't had a connection to that area of Palestine. So, but through WANN, I have developed meaningful relationships with young people there. And this has been so gratifying and an honor, a huge honor for me. I often think of how the multiple wars and harsh realities in Gaza have made the younger generation there mature just far too quickly. Palestine's beloved poet, Mahmoud Darwish, once said that every beautiful poem is an act of resistance. I think of this as resistance to the status quo, resistance to social norms, resistance to occupation and oppression, and resistance to narratives that are unjust, and so much more. So, writing about one's situation and feelings is a kind of resistance. It's empowering. The WANN writers are telling us that we are here, we have agency, we have dignity, we are steadfast. And all of us, we are privileged to have them share their stories with us. The writing can also be jarring and can jolt us out of our comfortable lives here in the West. It's so important for us to listen and to learn from them, and it's important for them to know that we are listening and reading their words. The WANN Project also makes their voices accessible to the Palestinian diaspora, too. This is one way to have Gaza not be isolated and the Palestinian identity not fragmented, as people sometimes tend to look at Gaza and its people as a separate entity. And Gaza's voices are part of the larger Palestinian community. And I like to think that WAN's encouragement of these young people to express themselves through writing and to bring their stories to Palestinians everywhere in the world helps to add to that unity of Palestinian voices. And finally, before I do some readings, I'd like to say that We Are Not Numbers is a community of its own. It's based on deep caring and love between the mentors and the mentees. We've all been emotionally affected by our work. During the genocide, people in the US have offered lots of support for the families of the mentees. They've offered scholarships for the students, and they've helped in so many ways. Many of us are writers and have amplified the experiences of the mentees. And having that personal connection has deepened our understanding immensely. And we have communicated it everywhere through our speaking and through our writing and through our activism. I was thinking today that one of my dreams is to meet my mentees in person sometime in my life. That would be just so meaningful. So I've been asked to read some of the three of the entries in the book, which I hope everybody will get. I'm going to read two poems and an essay. The first poem is titled I Am a Girl. It was written in 2016 by Yara Judah. It was mentored by Pam Bailey. I am a girl who has no dreams and maybe no future. In a blink of an eye, I could be without hands, heart, and soul. I am a girl who lives under a roof, which is under a sky occupied by thousands of planes full of rockets, who is surrounded by land without anyone to work it, because everyone is afraid of being killed by soldiers in the watchtowers, hidden but ready to fire at any time, without caring who they target and how their families will survive without them. Beyond that, there's a sea that, as much as we love it, terrifies us because it carries huge and creepy ships that can kill us as well. Shall I also tell you about the beautiful park turned into scarred, barren land? Shall I tell you I would love to fly on a plane, but I'm so scared of being killed by one? Shall I tell you that I'm scared to look at the sky and count the stars because maybe they will suddenly turn into the lights that kill? I can't even write about these things that threaten my life without fearing I will die as a result. I am a girl who, in parts of the world where the people matter, would be considered too young to ask such things, much less know anything about them. I am a girl who was forced to be an old woman at the age of 15. Yara left Gaza to live with her aunt and uncle and work in Saudi Arabia, and then she returned to marry. She left when the assault was just beginning in 2023. She is now back in Saudi Arabia studying for her master's degree and expecting her first child. Her parents and 3 of her sisters remain in Gaza. The second piece I'd like to read is an essay, and it's about prison and prisoners. It's actually called Prison is Personal for Palestinians. It was also written in 2016. The author is Salsabil Zainuddin, and she was mentored by Mimi Kirk. Before I read the poem, I just want to note that just last week on April 17, it was Palestinian Prisoners' Day. There are over 10,000 Palestinians currently imprisoned in Israeli jails. They experience violence and torture and live in extremely harsh conditions. There are hundreds of prisoners who are women and children. I will not read the entire essay, I'll read parts of it. For background, I'll say that Salsabil's father was imprisoned for writing graffiti, and her maternal uncle for anti-Israel activities. They were both jailed during the first Intifada in 1987. It's important to note that 25% of Palestinian population has been incarcerated by the Israeli government since 1967. Salsabil writes the following. My maternal uncle was sentenced to 7 life terms and 20 years, along with more than 750 other people during the first Intifada. Although he was jailed just 6 months after his wedding, his wife never asked for a divorce. She decided to wait for him because she believed the resistance would eventually end the occupation. Every month, my grandmother, my aunts, and my mother would begin preparing in the early morning on the day they planned to visit my uncle. They would wake before dawn, cook foods he couldn't get in prison, then start the journey from Gaza to Nafha prison near Beersheba in Israel. They passed many checkpoints, were searched by dogs, frightened and humiliated by the Israeli occupation forces. Visitation was a half an hour for only 2 people, and sometimes he was in the prison hospital or in solitary confinement and not available. My grandmother was illiterate, but she always waited impatiently for mail from my uncle, delivered by his lawyer, who would read the letters to her. These letters were like a treasure to her. Salsabil's uncle was released in a prisoner swap for the Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit. She writes, now it's 2016, and my uncle sometimes joins us for our shadowy evenings. He's not the same person at all after all those years of imprisonment. He talks very little. However, my uncle is free, and he and his wife had their first son recently. Although he was liberated, there are still more than 7,000 Palestinians held hostage in Israel's prisons. Salsabil now lives in Qatar. She works for a TV channel that specializes in documentaries, and her family has managed to evacuate Gaza. So this is the third thing that I'm going to read to you. It is a poem, a very powerful poem at the end, close to the end of the anthology. It's titled Tell Them, and it was written in the beginning of the genocide. And the poet is Huda Skeik, and it was mentored by Krista Brun. She has a figure in there of how many people had been killed, and it's an older figure, so she says 40,000. But as Alice Rothchild mentioned earlier, the number of people who have been killed is at least 72,000 now, and this is an undercount. Tell them, tell them, tell them, we are more than numbers, more than silent echoes in a ledger of loss. We are families entwined in love, friends living in the shadows of our hopes, bound by dreams. Tell them Dr. Rafat Al-Arair's words still ring in our hearts. His voice whispers in foreign streets, in every glance we cast at the sky, where the kite of his spirit soars. We tread this path, weaving stories from his legacy. Tell them Zina calls for her father Ismail al-Ghul with a voice hushed by grief, snatched away by Zionist forces that deemed his journalistic truth a threat, alongside his cameraman Rami al-Rifi, who shared his fate. Tell them not only Zina weeps for her lost father, but also Danya, Rushdie Sarraj's daughter, whose life was cruelly cut short by those same Zionist forces. Such beautiful, innocent souls like Zina and Danya will grow up without their heroes, without their fathers. Tell them the courageous Hind Khudari, the countless others like her march on, carry the torch of Ismail, Rushdie, and Rami. Tell them Ali Jadallah, though shattered, continues to capture our agony through his camera with unyielding strength. Tell them Muhammad Zahir Hamu, my colleague, lost his life and family, a young soul cut down, his pen and heart stilled too early. Tell them the skies above Gaza are ours no more, occupied by drones, bombs, and gunships, each bullet a symbol of their wrath. Tell them in Gaza, fathers bury sons, children's cries pierce the night for lost parents. Tell them our martyrs, more than 40,000, lie beneath the earth, each a story untold, a life cut short, a family bereft, left bereft. Their spirits light our path, urging us forward. Tell them we shall avenge them with our voices, with ink and pen, with memory and prayer. Tell them they will forever reside in our hearts. But tell me, how can we live, the living endure, without our beloved ones? Huda is still telling the world from Gaza. She has been forced to relocate 11 times and is struggling to complete her bachelor's degree online, disrupted by the constant evacuations, unstable internet, and unending stress. Thank you.
Thank you, Zena, for this very, very powerful, powerful read and for everything else that you talked to us about prison Israel for Palestinians. Growing up in Palestine, I don't know of anybody that didn't have a family member that was imprisoned. So thank you for shedding light on that as well. And now we're gonna move to one more Palestinian poet that is a board member of Baladna as well, and one of my partners in collaborating on this event, Sara Abu Rashid, who is a Palestinian poet, public speaker, and performer of the one-woman show, A Map of Myself. Originally from Haifa, she was born in Damascus, Syria, and has lived in the US since 2013. Her first book, a collection of poems titled Theories of Return, which I'm waiting for in the mail, just came out this week. And if you're in Columbus, we would be happy to if you would join us in celebrating her next Thursday evening, April 30th, at the McConnell Arts Center. I'll send the information for that as well. Sarah?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sabrine. Thank you to our wonderful writers and readers, Zaina, Dr. Alice, Shahid, Basman. We are deeply touched and moved by all of you, truly. I want to begin this conversation by giving space to Basman and Shahid specifically to tell us about where you have been in the last year. This book was published, this anthology, April 2025. So if you can tell us about your journey since then. Shahid, you began talking about being in the US now. Basman, we know you are in Cairo. So let's hear from you about what your journey has looked like.
Go ahead, Shahid.
So I'm actually in my dorm room.
Mhm.
So, as I said, now I'm a student at Bard College and I study human rights and written arts. The US experience has been really surprising in many ways. I mean, I'm so glad that there were mentors through your numbers who have taken care of us and have done everything they could to bring us here. And, I'm privileged compared to other Palestinians to be here. So ever since I came here, it was interesting to see the world from Gaza and see how Americans view Gaza. So I experienced this two important places, locations now in terms of our cause. And talking to the students, see their curiosity, see their love. We're really very loved among the our generation. A lot of people who are awakening have a lot of deep respect for the Palestinian struggle. And every time that I meet someone and I see the curiosity and I see their love and their respect, I feel so happy. So aside from that, of course, being in the US has its own challenges. One of them is, the fear of detention, what happened with Mahmoud Khalil, what happened with Mohsen Mahdawi. These things, of course, do affect anyone. Um, I mean, I've met Americans, naturalized Americans, who are so scared just because they stand for Palestine and maybe have talked about it or shared about it or have been vocal. So there are such fears that I experience in the US. And of course, there is racism. I was suspended from a summer camp because I was vocal on what's happening. Yeah, so these things do happen. I mean, I try to be as cautious as I can, but at the same time, we are literally left in a place where you either say and
Mm.
be truthful and honest with who you are, and at the same time be loyal to your people, or you don't. There is no, it's not, I don't see many options. That's how I would phrase it. I think
Thank you,
Palestine.
Shahid. Yeah, absolutely. There is no in between. Truly, the scale of what we have witnessed forces you to speak up. Otherwise, it's silence and it's cowardice. Basman, let's hear from you about where you are and how your journey leaving Gaza has been.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mm.
I'm currently in Cairo. I have been in Egypt since before the 7th of October, 2023. So I have that kind of, different and the new kind of suffering of watching the genocide from far. And I was supposed to be from July 2023 to October 2023 and then return back to Gaza. And after October, the 7th of October, I couldn't return back. So I was kind of stuck in Cairo, and I lost family and friends. And part of my family were able to flee before the Rafah crossing closed completely. And now I live here with the rest of my family. And also I'm just now reading, writing. So this is most of my work now, most of my day as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Shahid, you said something really moving, which is you miss the normal that was before this last genocide, even though even that was not normal by the world's standards. So I have a question for both of you, which is how did you make your world bigger in Gaza when you lived there? What activities, what organizations, what groups were you a part of? WANN, certainly one of them, but tell us more about how you experienced the world through Gaza.
Okay, so okay. Of course, We Are Not Numbers has been a big part of it. And the thing about the Gaza Strip is that it was full of NGOs. Before there were many, many, many youth NGOs or NGOs that work for, humanitarian purposes. I do remember there was Masarat, there was Pal Things, there was m- um, Social Development Center, there was Basman, you can help me with others. Yeah, but I mean, there were many, many NGOs. So they were doing a lot of like youth development and capacity building programs. And I think it like this kind of programs did give me a sense of like of purpose when I was in Gaza. And I would say like maybe one of the biggest struggle in the for the people of Gaza was finding a purpose, especially that like we're seeing a lot of like human rights violations. The world doesn't hear about us. We experience all of these betrayals, all of these disappointments, and what we're looking for is a sense of life and a sense of joy. So I think a lot of youth were trying to fulfill that through being really, really, really compassionate, and like we would compete each other on education. And this is such a beautiful thing because literacy rate in Gaza is like 97% was before October 7th. It was like 97 percentage. And I really think a big reason of why this has been the case is it was the thing we're making sense. There is a purpose. Like, and yeah, that's why I think a lot, like most of people in Gaza seek growth, seek development, um, and really like for them, art is a way of living. They try to maintain life in whatsoever way possible. I mean, I know it sounds weird when like you're bumping, but like at the same time we're dancing dabke. But for us, it's like you wanna bump bust. Okay, here is more joy. You cannot take our soul away. You can take our body. You can take whatsoever, but not our laughter. And trust me, I've met Israelis in the US, and I swear to God, our laughter really, really it drives them like so angry.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
again, as I had said, education is very essential for Palestinian in general. Personally, my major was in physiotherapy, but I believe that poetry is really a huge escape for me, especially for someone that live in Gaza and live the struggles of Gaza as well. And writing in general, and writing in a sarcastic way, which is my my real escape actually, is really to make fun about everything that you live in and that you struggle with is a key for me personally. And also, again, as Shahid said, we used to go to the sea like every Friday to just to have like big maqluba or big مسخن to have like tasha every while and like yeah to dance to listen to the music. So it's like I mean like the human ways of escape.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we love that. Dr. Alice spoke about writing simply because we believe in Gazans and in Palestinians as people who are creative, people whose spirit is not crushed no matter what. So we're really lucky to have kind of many roles represented from WANN. We have the mentees and the mentor liaison. So from each of your perspectives, let us hear about what has this organization meant for you? What was gained in writing English? Writing in English, not your first language, not your mother tongue, but definitely something that put you in contact and in connection with so many writers across the world. Some of them who are Palestinians or of Palestinian heritage, such as Zaina and Palestinians in exile. So each of you, I would love to hear from you about the joys and perhaps even some of the challenges or the surprises of being part of this We Are Not Numbers network.
So if it's okay, I can make a few comments. For me, being part of We're Not Numbers has been both a work of love, but also a work of a political activity, because I feel that living as a privileged person in the West and as a Jewish privileged person, one of the things that I could do for Gaza is help uplift the voices that are coming out of Gaza. And, one of the things that we really struggle with as mentors is the issue of voice. And, writers are not writing in their mother tongue. Some are very good at English, some are a little shaky. Arabic tends to be a lot more flowery than English. There are a lot of cultural voice issues. And so mentors need to figure out, how do I help this writer write the most compelling essay or poem that they can do in their own voice, but also credible for a Western audience. And that's a very big challenge that we work with all the time. And we have a lot of questions about, the colonization of language and who are we to decide, how it should be and all that. On the other hand, if you're incomprehensible, that's not good. So the question is, how do we support writers in developing their voice? And that's the real challenge. And it's a wonderful challenge to have. I don't know how the writers feel about it. If you could comment on that.
I really can't add too much to what Alice just said. It's just been, I really feel like it's a privilege to be working with WANN. It's such an amazing role to have, and to be in touch with young people from Gaza for me is just, I mean, I'm saying it from a real personal and a subjective point of view. It has been really inspiring and educational. And I've actually used a lot of what I've learned from the mentees in my poetry and in my activism. So that's that part of it. But at the same time, it really is very, it's just humbling, and it's also just wonderful to be able to mentor a young person in writing, and especially in poetry, which is just, near and dear to my heart. And to see them actually, like really take the advice and really implement it and incorporate it in their poems, and to learn and then to write another poem. I mean, it's really very gratifying for a mentor to have that experience. Um, and it's these are like Dr. Rifat Al-Arair, I always talked about why do we write poetry? Is it to express ourselves? Is it to mobilize people to action, etc.? And but when he said, it's to write our stories, and I think that's so important. We have to write our stories, and in WANN, we're encouraging these stories to be written, to be the personal stories, the personal experiences, and I think that's so important.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, Basman and Shahid. So tell us, why do you write, and what has it meant for you to write in English to a Western audience, to work with mentors? Are you still writing? What's your current practice?
Okay, it's first of all, it's official that I'm the oldest member of We Are Not Numbers.
Oh,
Oldest by age and oldest by joining.
wow.
So, yeah, and of course, for someone like me who doesn't even measure in English, it's not easy to write in English, even though if you like English, as myself. So for me, We Are Not Numbers are always a very welcoming home. And of course, it helps me a lot through my writing. And at first, even at the very beginning, I wasn't sure about what is my writing. So the We Are Not Numbers was the direction for me to understand even my writing. I still write, thankfully. And I don't know why I write exactly, but I feel like it's something that even my body chose to do. I mean, like after the 2014 war in Gaza, I wasn't think of myself as a writer, but I started to write after the war, 2014 on Gaza, and I don't at that moment, and even now, I don't understand why it's writing, but I start to put words and start to put ideas and start to write about. I also lost a friend to that war, so I start to express my feelings, and I think this is that. This is where it all started.
Beautiful. Thank you, Usman. Shahid, how about you?
Honestly, okay. Alice mentioned that writing can be a form of therapy. And honestly, like growing up in Gaza, it's been really, really challenging. So I was struggling a lot. And writing and reflecting on what I was going through like was really helpful for me to heal because I really was full of things. And I'm like, I'm young, but I'm full of things like bigger than me, you know? And then writing them and all that, I started to like understand what has been happening with me. And honestly, I would say that one of the biggest helpful thing for me that happened through We Are Not Numbers, which I also cannot deny, is that they collaborated with an organization called Palestine Mental Health USA. They partnered me with someone called the Cheryl Qamar. She gave me compassionate conversation, and that conversation was such an essential part of my life. When I came to the US, it turned out that Michelle Kamar lives 20 minutes away from my college. So ever
Wow.
since she arrived, she has been taking care of me like she's my mom. I remember like when I arrived and she knew that I'm here, she came to Bard, she hugged me, she was crying, and she was like, I feel since this has happened, like I have to take care of you. It's crazy, but I have to take care of you. So that's a lot of really nice connections, deep stories I maintained through We Are Not Numbers. By the way, Zena, you were the first mentor who I met in person. So it's interesting because I met Charlene. She was the first one I took on WhatsApp. Like we were in a poem together, and Zena was the first one I met in person. And I remember you and I didn't know. like like I'm Shahid and you're Zena. Yeah, so it was really such a nice connection. I was so proud that someone on the table, like with very important people, knows me. I was like, thank God.
That
So
was so wonderful. It was great.
We Are Not Numbers like was the but like wasn't it corresponded with my early 20s. So I was 19 till now I'm engaged, and all of my friendships in Gaza, everything like it was really such a big part of my life. And now at Bard, people are very surprised that I'm from Gaza from day one that I came. They're like, we can't believe you're from Gaza. And it's because like I speak very good English, I write very well, my teachers are surprised. And it's only because I've been in an online school that is like mainly American since 2019. So that's my secret. Now they know.
Now we know. That's amazing. Wow. This was actually a question we just received, which is with many writers and mentors, have you met in person? Has there been connections that transcended just the regular pairing? And I'm curious, how frequent were the meetings with mentors? What was that relationship like, or the frequency of it? And Dr. Alice, feel free to comment on the
So,
big.
it's changed depending on the political war situation, obviously. But we do, when a mentor and a writer gets the match, I send it out on email. And so if the writers are getting their email, they'll get the message. And I expect them to the mentor to communicate with the writer within 24 hours, if only to say, I've got it and I'll be looking at your work, and this Saturday I can send you some information. We do encourage, if at all possible, for there to be some face-to-face virtual Zoom, whatever, Skype, however they can do it at the beginning so that there's that human connection. And then the amount of back and forth depends on the quality of the writing and how well the writer understands the comments from the mentor and how well the mentor understands the writer. So, I mean, there are some people who will get connected with a mentor and be done in 2 weeks, and there's some people that work 3 months, because the level of English is all over the place, and particularly during the genocide, we had an untrained cohort, so people weren't trained in the basic stuff that they get. And the other thing is, we all had to learn our jobs. Like it's very hard for a young writer, and it's hard for an old writer like me, for someone to say that sentence has to go. That's like ridiculous because it's killing your babies. Everybody's like, but I love that word, and I'm like, but that's not actually a word. It's like so the writers have to learn how to be mentored, and mentors have to learn how to mentor someone from a different culture and a different language usually. So it's a learning process, and both sides are learning back and forth. And sometimes the match is fabulous, and sometimes it's a little shaky, and sometimes it's catastrophic. And then we make a different match, and we try to figure out how to move the process forward. So the amount of back and forth is hugely variable.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We have one last question for each of you. For Basman and Shahid, people are wondering what poets or writers are you reading today? Who would you like to study with if it was possible? Who are your role models in writing? Feel free to give us any names or books or things that you've been excited to read.
Can you repeat again the question?
Oh, the question is, what are you reading these days? Like what poets, writers, and who would you like to study with if it was possible?
I mean, I read a book now called it's in Arabic. It's Arabic poetry for a young Palestinian poet from Gaza. It's called Amir al-Aqad, which is العنوان الكتاب ثقب في جدار الخيمة أو ثقب في سقف الخيمة.
Okay.
I'm still writing this. I haven't finished that yet.
Okay.
And I cannot name one. I mean, I cannot think of one name or one poet. Like I love Mahmoud Darwish. I love Rashid Hussein. I love. I'm so into Palestinian poetry, of course, Arabic and English. But I mean, there's too many names to count, so I cannot think of one name. To be fair,
Yeah.
I would love to. If I had the chance to meet any of them, of course, I would love to. But I mean, some of them are gone. And yeah.
Shahid, how about you? Thank you, Basman.
Yeah, so I told you that I was suspended from summer camp called Rising Sun. Anyway, when I was suspended, someone, because I really got very, very depressed, someone gifted me the book Perfect Victims for Muhammad al-Kurd or Muhammad al-Kurd. I did it and I was like, it makes perfect sense. Like I was like, oh my God, everything is very right. It's literally like he explains how the Palestinian is perceived in the US very well, and like in the Western like dynamics in the Western ways of representation and understanding. Basically, it says as long as the Palestinian is submissive and like not defensive and not like clear on their standards, including resistance, then they can be brought to in front of audiences. Like they would love to bring you to share your story and like present themselves as the progressive organization. Oh, we're very liberal, we include everybody and all that. But just as soon as the Palestinian does not fit in that mold, and they just break it, and they're like the actual Palestinian who's angry, who's wounded, who's all of these things, and who's like the victim, but yet it's not the victim. So it's kind of becomes pretty challenging for them to include. So basically, they dismiss people like that. And for me, I'm from Gaza. I can never say that I didn't experience what I've experienced. When any organization, especially social justice organization, brings a Palestinian, specifically from Gaza, specifically that they live the genocide, they should be expecting that this person is going to share what has been happening with them. There is no way that you bring someone without bringing their story or their voice with them. So that
Yeah, okay. Just commenting on what Shahid said, I read Perfect Victim, and it was a very powerful book, yeah. And the idea that being angry or being even violent under the occupation shouldn't exclude you from being the same human being as someone else. So I think, yeah, it's very powerful. So thank you, Shahid, for that.
Yeah, and I think it's very important in order to understand, Palestinians. Like now, anyone who asks me, like, what should I like read? First book that comes to my mind is Perfect Victims, because I'm like, if you read it, you understand how I think. You understand what I want from you, which is to respect me with all of who I am. And that's why the piece that I've shared, like, I want the world to know, it's like we're neither heroes nor victims. We're just people who are literally have been confronted to harsh conditions that we don't like. For example, like we Palestinians are getting a lot of attention now, but if it were to us, we want a safe home and we don't care about the attention. I mean, now, like sadly, like the home has been taken, so the attention is kind of replacement. But really, if it was to me, and I'm sure if it was to Basman, we want our home and leave it. Actually, the song in Arabic, like خدوا المدارس, خدوا كل إشي وسيبوا لي الوطن, which means like take schools, take everything, just leave the home and we will be fine. Seriously. Yeah.
I wish we had unlimited time with all of you. Truly, there are so many things to say, and we are so blessed to have this connection. And one thing is, We Are Not Numbers is not only the name of the organization and the anthology, but truly the slogan for Palestine and for Gaza. We are so honored to have met each of you, your unique personalities, your perspectives, your opinions, and we are truly blessed by this gathering. Thank you all. Thank you for joining us. We hope you get the anthology and that you celebrate these wonderful people. There are so many other writers we did not even, we cannot even represent in such a short event. And if you're in Columbus, I would love to see you next Thursday as well. And I am so proud of all of you and proud that we are continuing this lineage of resistance writing, of Palestinian and Palestinian Western writing that's all committed to our cause and to liberation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And have a good night.